everyone, and welcome to Pets Chats with APBC. We are the Association of Pets Behaviour Counsellors, and we're here to teach you how to be the best pet owner or behaviourist in the world. I'm Lauren Hewitt-Watt, and I'm joined by my co-host, Danielle Beck.
Hello. How are you today?
Today we were talking about things we want to cover, and myths about the APBC came up because we've been around for a long time, and like any organisation, there are always these kind of thoughts or myths or unconfirmed things that we might think. So we're here to debunk these myths. So I'm going to start asking Danielle. And the first one that I hear is that the APBC is very old-fashioned and they're not keeping up with trends in behaviour and training. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, just because we've been around a long time, I think we're in our 35th year is coming up either this year or next year. It doesn't mean that we're not up to date. We have a lot of young members. We've got members that have been here since the beginning, and we are very much a science-led organization. So we kind of go where the science is. So we're very up to date on our methods. We're very up to date with moving changes and listening to what's going on in the industry and doing our best to kind of be at the forefront of helping make change for the better of the industry and for our clients and ourselves. So I very much want to steer away from the myth that, we're very rigid and structured and old school, because we're not. I mean, myself and Lauren, we're very much faces of the APBC at the minute. And I mean, I don't think I'm that old personally. I mean, the APBC is older than me, maybe. Just about.
Yeah, actually, same here.
So we are changing, and as we get new members in with new ideas, we're always open, and we're very much putting our members forward as an organization. We want to listen to what our members need, what our members want, and we will make the changes as committee members where we can to help the organization grow in that way forward, to make space and improve welfare for our members in the future and for their pets.
And I think we're getting quite a young membership come through as well. So we've got the benefit of having kind of the people who've been around, very experienced for a long time. And then we've also got this really nice influx of younger members. And I think that's really important for any organisation. But it helps us keep up to date and not be stuck in that very traditional, method or structure of behaviour. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's very simple for any of us that work in this industry to kind of get stuck in our ways of doing things. And I like the kind of position where I am currently, my age range, because there are people older than me with so much more experience that I love speaking to. But then I love speaking to the younger people and going, I never would have thought of that, because they have a brand new perspective on things and are usually so enthusiastic about things. And I love discussing things with some of our younger members. And their input is valid, like their experience is valid. And it's wonderful to kind of hear their experiences and their thoughts and changing, especially as our worldview is changing and the way that we live with our dogs is very much changing.
No, definitely. Okay, we've got another one.
Okay.
So the APBC doesn't assess practical training skills. What do you think of that?
Well, as a APBC assessor for both the ABT role and the CAB role, I can in fact say that yes, we do, because it's on the performance criteria. So we need to make sure that our members not only understand the theory behind things, but can practically apply it. And, you're assessed to make sure that you are kind, that you're fair, that you're effective. We want to make sure that you are able to help the dog read their body language and interpret that, and help the owners and the caregivers to be able to teach those behaviors as well. So it is part of our assessment process. We have to see you train. And we want to make sure that we can see you train a variety of different dogs with a variety of different ways, because we want people to have a wonderful toolbox, and we want to know that you can pick the right tool for that situation. And you will be assessed on what you pick and why you picked it and why you didn't pick other things as well. So it is quite a rigorous process that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, just how not strict, because we want you to pass, but we have high standards and you need to be able to meet them.
Yeah. And I think because there's, there used to be days when people used to say, I'm a behaviourist, I'm not a trainer. So, I don't do, almost like I think of it as how a psychologist maybe does some of the work, but they don't do the work of like a personal trainer. They might say, you need more exercise, but you need to go see a personal trainer for that, because I'm not going to do it. But I think it has moved on, and we do expect, if a behaviourist comes out, that they can at least teach some basic training to our clients, and that is different to how it was.
Absolutely, because like I have been called an armchair behaviourist so many times, but I'm like, what even is that? And, yes, the job of us in our clinical behaviour hat on, we are generally sat in a chair and we're taking notes because we need to understand the history. We are doing a diagnostic process to find out the underlying causes of this animal. We aren't looking at the quick fixes. We're not looking at, if I just teach this, it'll solve the problem. Because I can teach a dog to sit on a mat when people walk through the door really easily, but I'm not going to address that dog's anxiety about the people walking in through teaching that behavior. It might mask it, it might suppress it, but I'm not going to rectify it. So that's what we do in our diagnosing things. So I guess, in that context, we are in the armchair, but the actual kind of application of our training plans, we do those as well. So we will be out there with the clients, in the field. We're walking the dogs along with them. We'll be teaching them how to do all these different exercises and patting games and anything else that we're doing with them. And many of us, in fact, are ATI. So we're accredited trainers as well. We are on the register for CAB and ATI. Those of us that aren't doing that, I myself have a team. So I step away from a lot of the in-person training. I can still do it, but I have a team that can do it because I love my diagnosing part of the job. I like my CAB role more than I like my ATI role. They are two different roles, and the ABT role that's come through, our newest one, is like the perfect match because that's our rehabilitation trainer role. So many of us have our CAB hats, we have our rehab trainer hats, and we have our pet dog instructor hats as well. And they are all very different roles, and it's not hierarchical as much as people think. So I think it's really narrow-minded sometimes of people that go, oh, well, you're a behaviorist, so you can't do that. I'm like, actually, there's a lot of stuff that we can do. And many of us do compete with our dogs in various different things. So it's picking the right behaviorist for you, because there will be some that do have the old style of, I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to write your report, and then you're on your own. Many of us have stepped away from that because we have acknowledged that it's not as beneficial to our clients as kind of going, okay, I've got a treatment plan for you, but I'm going to release little bits at a time, and I'm going to help you work through it together. And if we need to, we can call on an external source to come in and help you do the finer training things where you need be. And I think that's what I love about us being part of the ABTC, is that we've got all those different roles. So we can look at our thing and go, actually, I really need someone that's fantastic at teaching scent work, for example. Something that's a bit more niche. Most of us can teach the beginnings of scent work, but to be like a fantastic operational scent work trainer, that's a speciality in itself. So it's here's how we would start. If you like it with your dog, here's a really fantastic scent work instructor that can help you with your reactive dog to give them tasks and confidence in the outdoor world. Or here's a parkour instructor that can help you get your dog to build up their confidence. Here's someone that teaches more obedience type things or agility. And we can navigate people into those areas. And it'd be wonderful if it kind of worked both ways. So people that are seeing dogs come through in the dog sports see a dog, actually, this dog really struggles in this situation and we can't quite figure out, hey, we've tried to teach you this. Refer on to us. Let us do the investigation part for you. And then they can come straight back.
Yeah, no, I think you're so right. And there's space for everybody. There's space for everyone to do those things. And we do have members in the APBC who do competitive sports, who do that very, very high level training with their dogs. So I think it's a bit of an unfair assumption to say that we all just sit down and take notes, like you said. So I think you explained that really well, actually.
It might have been true like 20 years ago, but a lot has changed since then.
And also they weren't behaviourists 20 years ago. Like it wasn't honestly, the career, the amount of opportunities that there are is so different. Like 20 years ago, I mean, I would never say, I want to be a behaviourist when I grow up, because it just wasn't a
known thing.
So I think, lots of things have changed, and that's what we're trying to move on the thinking as well, which is good. And I think this kind of leads us on in terms of change is, I think one myth or assumption around the APBC is that we're not very diverse. And I'd really like, because you've been doing a huge amount of work on diversity and making us more inclusive. So I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think dog training as an industry needs to be more diverse, more inclusive. We need to get people from all different walks of life, ethnic minorities, disabilities, everything. And it's growing and changing. And I personally feel that one of the biggest roadblocks there was that you quite often had to have like an academic qualification of some way to get into the APBC, which is still very much the case. But we now also have our APEL routes, which a lot of our members worked really hard on with the ABTC to come up with a rigorous way that we can assess people based on their experience. because we understand that your experience is valid. What you learn from training the dogs, from going to conferences and watching workshops and webinars and things like that, is very much valid, and we want to make sure that we can assess you on that knowledge and go, you know what, this 20 years that you've been training dogs for is absolutely fantastic. We want you, come on in, we can learn a lot from you. If we find out that there's gaps somewhere in your knowledge, we can go, this bit's all really, really good, but there's a little bit of around here about your ethology in particular, or maybe like your legal side of things, that we can go, there's some gaps here. It's really worth looking into how to explore these things for these reasons and help you go away. And I myself am part of our diversity, equity, inclusivity division within the APTC, and we've joined with the ABTC as our umbrella organization, because we really want to help increase diversity and inclusivity within the organizations and dog training as a whole. So we want to see more diversity in conferences. We want to see it more in marketing retail. We want to make sure that people from ethnic minorities and like the global majority are able to feel welcomed into these spaces. Because it used to be quite elitist and it did feel uncomfortable for a lot of people. Whereas now we want to try and smash down those barriers. It's going to take time. That's the big thing, is a lot of the time, especially with our organization being as prestigious as it is, when we have our conferences, we tend to need people that are PhD level to come and speak. So our team are working hard to look beyond the kind of publicly known speakers to find out who is out there that we can bring, that needs the spotlight, that we can help with. And so we're always on the lookout to kind of help bring people into the fold. So we're always looking for people that can help do that. And we're working with quite a few different individuals to help us branch out on that, to make it more inclusive, because we need people from all walks of life to better understand the differences in the cultural variations between how people are, how the dogs are, so we can better increase the welfare for everyone.
And I think as well, like you said, when we're seeing clients, there are people from all walks of life, and so we need to represent that in some way. And it will take time, but we're making progress in terms of everything that we're trying to do. And I think it's important that we talk about these things as well, because I think sometimes you don't want to talk about it because it can open up
to being targeted. And I'm very aware that we are currently, two white women talking about inclusivity and diversity on YouTube as part of our organization, and it's being aware of those things and making changes. So just being aware that, as committee members, that voice is now being heard. Like, we can get the voices of people to the committee and to the ABTC and go, look, this needs to change because the voices of these people isn't being represented, and it needs to be. Which is why the APBC, we were one of the first ones to start having subtitles on our recorded webinars. We have our videos on so people can lip read. We try and make sure that things are inclusive for a variety of different disabilities and things, to make sure that people are able to respond. And we look back for any feedback for things that we have missed, like image descriptions and things on messages on social media and stuff is big, that we're trying to do. And sometimes it is missed. And, we need to take responsibility for the things that we haven't done. It's one thing to sit here and go, we're making change, but people need to see it.
No, but I hope that people will see it, and I think it's a really important myth to cover, or assumption to cover. So and I'm so pleased that you came on, that you are the co-host, because you're doing amazing work with that.
It is one of my passions, is to increase diversity, inclusivity for the industry as a whole. So it's very much, you see me kind of go, oh, this is my thing. Definitely.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so talking about organizations, we've mentioned a few different ones, and I think there's a myth or an assumption, because we basically, as the APBC, for anyone that isn't a member, we assess people to become clinical animal behaviourists, and that means that they go on the ABTC register, which is the umbrella. So is our assessment of being a clinical animal behaviourist, is that the same as other assessors on the ABTC? Because I think there's a bit of an assumption that different organizations assess clinical behaviorists at different levels.
I mean, the main thing is that anyone on the ABTC register as that umbrella body, we assess the same standards. So the ABTC and the working groups within basically create the performance criteria and the knowledge and understanding of where they feel everyone's knowledge and their performance needs to be for each of the roles in that register. And that is reviewed every 3 years or so. So they'll always bring in new things and change and adapt things, again, to maintain inclusivity and to maintain those high standards. So anyone assessing for those roles will assess the same thing. The way they assess might be different. So some of us might be looking for more things than others. Some might be okay with video, some might want in person. Our assessment process, we have written parts, we have video parts, and we have oral interviews. And we want to make sure that we can assess and get evidence that people meet each of these performance criteria. But if you're assessing for CAB and you meet CAB, it doesn't matter which organization you are registered as CAB on, because you're assessed the same standard.
Brilliant. That's good to know, because I feel like there's so many, is it acronyms? ABTC, is that right?
Yeah, because it's like alphabet soup, isn't it?
Yeah, there's so many different letters, and I think that can be really confusing. But no, I'm really pleased you've cleared that one up.
No problem.
And then my next one, and actually this is quite a serious one, because I've heard it, and I'm sure you've probably heard it as well, is that the APBC recommends rehoming or dogs or animals being put to sleep too quickly.
Yeah, this is one that it's horrible as an APBC member for people to say that you are really quick to recommend euthanasia for a dog. So first of all, as APBC members, we will never recommend anything like that. There may be suggestions that go on, and we will discuss options with people, and it is very much the client's decision and responsibility, and we will support them. So if a client comes to us and they're like, this is our dog, this is the situation, it's a dangerous situation, what are we going to do? We then have to discuss the safety and management risks for the current situation. Some of these dogs could be rehabilitated, but the rehabilitation might take 6 to 8 months, and they still have to live with this dog. And if there's small children, things involved, we have to assess the safety risk there. We then have to look at rehoming, and then it's okay, where can we rehome to? And the rehoming stage, especially at the minute, is incredibly difficult. So can we find this dog a suitable home, a safe home? What about the dog's welfare in the meantime? Is it going to be a bounce from rescue to home just to end up being PTS in 2 or 3 years time? Like, there's so many different things to go on with these cases that it's never they come to us, they have a bite history, instantly we go, no, you're best off putting them to sleep. Like, that was something that we would never ever do. It's never an easy decision for any of us. And most of us, if we have a case where that has to be an outcome, or that's been discussed and it turns out is an outcome, we tend to have a couple of days off and eat some ice cream with our clients. Like, it is not a nice thing to go through. None of us got into this job because we want to euthanize dogs. Like, we want to help, we want to support, but we're also realistic in the dogs that we can help and the situations. And sometimes the unicorn home for some of these dogs just doesn't exist, and they are so stressed, their welfare is compromised. And that's the discussion that we need to have with the clients and with the vets. Sometimes there are medical things that contribute to this that are too much, that it's just not a clear-cut thing of a dog comes to us and we'll recommend that, because we won't. We will discuss everything, and we're all aware that that is a potential option, and behavioural euthanasia is a valid option for some people, as hard as it is to think about. When you're looking at welfare and distress for everyone, sometimes that is the right option for these clients in these situations, especially if there's a medical thing going on, or if the dog is just that stressed and traumatized that they are never going to really fully recover. And these are horrible, horrible cases. It's not something that we're going to take lightly. And if we can avoid or find another home or a rehabilitation center, that is going to be the priority. But the state of the rescues at the minute and finding those rehoming places are getting slim and slim. So I really hate when people say that that's like our first thought, because it is never our first thought. It is the last resort for the majority of dogs. You know, we work very closely with vets to avoid these things, so we can get medications into these dogs faster if they need to. We can get that medical support on side. But there's just some situations where, yeah, it is an outcome, but they're few and far between. You know,
I think with the dangerous, the situation that we're recording, dangerous dog attacks are increasing we're not going to go into it now, but there is a big responsibility in terms of you as an owner, in terms of keeping people safe and yourself safe. So that's one thing. But then we also have that burden where, okay, we're not directly living with the dog and responsible for the dog, but you've asked us for our help. And so it's never an easy, there's never this, oh, that dog's too tricky to train, we'll just put it to sleep. Like, no one would ever think that's not what we're trained to do. Like, no vet would want to do that. No one who loves animals would ever want to do that. So I don't really know where this myth has come from. I don't, it's one of those things that, you know, hopefully we've debunked it now and no one will ever say it again, because it's not true.
Yeah.
So,
and people always argue that, oh, well, you could have gone for these training methods or these things. But again, when we're looking at these cases, we're looking at welfare. And, you know, we want to make sure that these dogs are living the best life possible and not one where they are completely stressed and shut down. And, you know, many of us in these cases, like, we get just as upset as the owners do, you know, and we will wake up at, you know, 3 o'clock in the morning going, oh my God, what if this happens? So what if this happens? Oh, maybe we could try this. Like, it is on our mind all the time to try and help these people as much as possible. So hopefully this helps you kind of debunk that we're not just going to go straight into a case and go, right, euthanasia. Because we're not. We're going to look at everything and try and help you find the best course possible for your dog to make your life easier, with that being hopefully the last resort.
Yeah, no, it's a really tricky one, but I thought I wanted to cover it because I think it's important that we have these conversations. And, you know, I'm sure there's probably room to do a whole episode all about.
I think an episode about behaviour euthanasia and discussing more about it as a, not a treatment option, because that's not the best thing, but as an outcome, because there's a lot of people that have gone through that, and it's heartbreaking for people to go through, but they had very, very, very valid reasons for doing so, and they shouldn't be shamed for doing it.
No. And also I'm just thinking in terms of rescue, everyone thinks there's this farm and the dogs just run and they just live free. It's
not like that. And there's some rescues where they will have to make those decisions as well. And there's some situations where we know full well if this dog goes into a rescue, the rescue will euthanize it instead. So is it a kinder for that dog to go to the vets with their family, with the people that they love, rather than going through the stress of going into rescue for it to happen later. Sometimes we kind of have to think about taking that responsibility on ourselves rather than pushing it off onto someone else, because there's so many dogs, and especially so many dogs that need rescue. And if you've got a dog in rescue with a bite history and one without, the one without is the easier one to rehome, and the one with the bite history is going to stay there for longer and longer and longer. And rescues will do their best to make sure the welfare is optimum, but we have to look at these things on welfare grounds as well.
Oh, well, I think that's covered that really nicely with that one. So I think just maybe finish on a lighter note. So a myth that I've heard about trainers and behaviourists is that, you know, we're all kind of doing this as a side job. It's an easy source of income, and we're just doing it because we're all funded by rich husbands and inheritances. And I've heard people seem to have this assumption that they come to us and it's like a hobby, or it's a, you know, so I'd love for you to talk through that.
I mean, thinking back to the days when, like, I was a single mum and this was like my full-time job, and I had to pick up an extra job on the side because people had that idea. It's frustrating because there was a time when, you know, dog training was a dog club at the weekend and you paid a couple of pounds and that was it. But as an industry, we have grown and we have found that there is a very valid need for this, for public safety, as you mentioned earlier about the dogs, for welfare, to make sure that people can communicate effectively with their animals. And we have learned so much. Like, there are master's degrees now that specialize in this thing. It is a very valid profession in its own right, and as such, the prices are going to reflect that. You know, it's not going to be a cheap thing, and you will pay for what you get in most situations. Not all. Be aware of the websites and what organizations people belong to. But, you know, when you come to one of our members with a problem with your dog, the reasons that quite often our fees are a little bit higher than most think is because we've usually got so much experience in academic things that we're not just going to look at a situation going, right, we're just going to teach you this. We want to get to that root cause. And that takes a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience to be able to go, okay, here are all the possible reasons why your dog might be doing this behavior. Let's have a chat so we can figure out how to rule each one in and out. And then we can come up with an accurate diagnosis for you and your dog and a tailor-made treatment plan. Like, that's what you're getting. So when you're looking at that, it's that experience. I love the chat about kind of like the boiler men that kind of come in and they take 2 minutes to look at something and they tap it in a certain place and they charge you like your £100. Like, you were here for a second and you did this. It's like, yeah, but you're charging me for the knowledge to know that that's what I needed to do. It's the same thing with us, is you're paying us for our time and our knowledge and the skills that we have and the CPD that we do every year to update those skills and knowledge. This is very much not a hobby for us. It is a career. It might start out as a hobby because training dogs is fun.
Yeah.
But to learn how to do it properly and how to teach other people how to do that is a whole different skill, and it's very much a career path.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
because I get people and they're like, oh, do you do this full time? Is this your job? Is this what you do full time? And people still don't seem to know that it is actually a career path. I wouldn't say it's a traditional career path. No. But it is something that a lot of our members are doing full time. So that's I just thought it was a funny one to cover because it's something that I've heard and people kind of seem to think that it's not. But a lot of our members, it's their full-time career. They take it very seriously. They've got a huge amount of experience, a lot of knowledge. They've spent a lot of money on their career. So we are doing it full time.
So our prices kind of have to reflect that because we have rent and children and things to feed.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Danielle. That's been you've been doing that, like going over everything so well. So I'm hoping it's debunked any myths.
If anyone has any questions about anything and wants to open up discussion, by all means comment, and we will do our best because we don't want to censor anyone's voice and do that everything is valid. And we are aware that things need to improve, and changes need to happen. It's just the rate at which they happen, especially in a large organization as ours, because it has to go through committees and then it has to be filtered through to things. So it can take change, and a lot of things are planned a few years in advance. So we might be making changes now, but you're not going to see it in effect until like 3 years when the next plan of things come in. So there's a timeline that I think a lot of people are aware of with bigger organizations of how things are planned.
Absolutely. So, do comment, and only thing we'd ask is just keep it nice.
Be polite, please.
Be nice, because we've all seen the fallout of the industry. So be nice, but you can comment anything, and do make sure you subscribe and you share with anybody that you think will find it useful. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next session.
Bye.